Well, hello everybody and welcome to another rowing chat. I'm Rebecca Caro and today I'm joined by Matt Tarrant. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we kick off, I want to say hello to all of our listeners and particularly to people who are now watching live on the live stream. We have got a couple of sponsors this month. Our first sponsor are Faster Masters rowing training programs. They're a subscription coaching service for older athletes. Specialist Marlene Royal has been coaching older athletes for decades, and she understands the needs of masters, particularly their recovery needs. And so she's created online monthly downloadable training programs. They're in 6 separate modules. You can get them for individuals, for crews, or for a complete club. If you're preparing for the head of the Yarra or coming up to the Fours head or even the head of the Charles, it's not too late to get October's program and be ready to race in 4 or 6 weeks. The Faster Masters rowing program is the solution that will make you row faster this year. Click on the program's links at fastermastersrowing.com. Our second sponsor this month is all about your blade work. When you dig your oars deep under the water, it's a real challenge for many athletes because it's inefficient. A canny engineer called Ian Randall has come up with a solution that both prevents digging and also apparently makes your boat go faster. Randall foils launched during 2019, and these ingenious devices are L-shaped flanges that glue or tape to the top edge of your oar. You can get a discount on our sponsors page. So go to rowing.chat/sponsors. And there's a 10% discount code for the Perfect Balance rowing supplier who serves Australia and New Zealand. And that link is on that page. In Europe and North America, you can buy Randall foils from Aram Training. And there's a central USA supplier as well. Now, Matt, your first time. Welcome to Rowing Chat.
Thank you. Yep.
Now, would you like to kick off by telling people who you are and what you do in rowing?
Yes, as you say, my name's Matthew Tarrant. I'm currently a full-time member of the British rowing team. This is my 8th year on the senior rowing team. Won a couple of medals along the way. I was lucky enough to go to Rio as one of the Olympians, and hopefully very soon we'll be heading off to Tokyo if everything goes to plan.
Well, that's a very leading question, but I will come back to Tokyo, I think, a little bit later on. Now, when you first started in rowing, were you part of the talent identification program in Britain?
No. I actually applied for World Class Start and they turned me down. So yeah, I'm not one of the World Class Start athletes. I went to my local rowing club with a friend, and it was basically parents that ran the club, and I was petrified of a skinny single. So I spent my first year in a massive wide, what we call Mondegos, practicing singles, and I learned as the parents learned to coach, and we sort of got along, and it was through that bond and that relaxed atmosphere that I sort of fell in love with the sport.
Can you remember what inspired you first to want to go down to the club?
It was a family friend. I come from a family of rugby players. So me and my 2 brothers always used to play rugby, sort of London Irish and Old Bredonians. But my granddad always used to get annoyed because he said I was too friendly, and I'd never liked running into people and tackling them. And because I was quite a big guy, my friend straight away said, "You're tall, you're big, you're heavy, you should come down and give rowing a go." And to be honest, I wasn't much smaller than the size I am now when I was 14. So it gave me an easy advantage over my rivals, and I found I was okay at it. And for the first time, I guess, in my young life, I found something that I was good at and I could excel at. And I think that was the thing that hooked me.
So who was this family friend?
He was called Oscar. So he rowed at a local school in Pangbourne, but he was also one of the top junior rowers at Weybridge Rowing Club. And yeah, he got me down. He got my older brother down as well. And once my little brother was old enough, he then came down as well. And now the whole family's been converted to rowers.
I'm so sorry, London Irish. Your loss, our gain.
Yeah.
And so you were a junior high school rower in a local club.
Yeah, so not even at my local school. My school didn't have a rowing club, so it was all sort of self-taught at my local rowing club. And I think within sort of my first real year, we brought on our first paid coach, a nice guy called Bill Wilcox, and he saw the scores that I was putting on the rowing machine, and straight away said, "I need to send you and your brother to GB trials." He filled in the paperwork. Unfortunately, my older brother was, I think, maybe a week too old to go to the trials. But I was lucky enough to have 2 more years in me. So I actually went to 2 junior worlds. But he got me into it. He moved me up to Walton Rowing Club. And then another coach, Nick DeCarter, took me under his wing and sort of did all the miles, trekking up and down to Nottingham, took me to all the trials I needed to. And we finally got there.
Fantastic. So what were you in the first year when you made the junior team?
I was in the pair, one of my favourite boats. So that was fun. Didn't have a clue what I was doing, but it was a lot of fun. And I was lucky enough to fall in one of the years. So every year before the Olympic Games, the juniors test the Olympic venue. So for me in 2007, I got to compete in the Beijing course, which was great considering I never left the country without my parents before.
Whoa, that's amazing. So that was it called the Youth Olympics then?
So it used to be called the Youth Olympic Festival.
Okay.
And it used to only be held in Sydney. Mm-hmm. On the Rowan Lake there, and I went to that in my first year at university. So that was in 2009, I believe.
That's right, because they allow you to be under 19, don't they?
Yes, yeah.
Fantastic.
That's also a lot of fun.
you got some good trips.
Yeah, I've been lucky. Yeah, and now we still get to go on a lot of good trips. But you see the hotel, you see the inside of a coach, and then you see the Rowan Lake. So. You know, you travel to all these places, but you don't see much of them anymore.
Yeah. That's the difference. Now, let's talk a little bit about pairs. So what is it now about the pair still that makes it one of your favorite boats?
I think the main factor is that whenever you do well in a pair, 50% of that was you. And the bigger the boat, the less sort of impact you have on that end result. It becomes more of a widespread between the rest of the crew. And because it's only 2 of you, there's quite a tight bond that you create, and you have to be so in unison with each other. You need to learn how each other react when it's getting close to a regatta. Some people might get really stressed. Some people might be really chilled out. Some people start yawning a lot. They get really jokey all of a sudden. And it's just, you learn how to get along with each other. And, it can be hard at times, but it can also be really, really great. And, it's just, it's a funny sensation in a pair. Once it gets up and going, it's unrivaled, even to the 8 when it's full of testosterone and it's moving really fast. There's just something that makes a pair feel different when you're racing.
Very interesting. So talk about how many different pairs partners have you had? Presumably a few over the years.
Yeah, quite a few. Well, my first ever pairs partner was a guy called Matt Anker from Oratory School. That was in 2007. We won the B final. And then the following year, my trialing partner was a guy called Jason Phillips, who we then ended up going in the Cox 4 together that year. And then when I was at university, I was always with, most of the time I was with Scott Tarrant, who was in the bow seat of the Rio 8. And then I had Fred Gill, who was another guy from Newcastle. And then since I've been in the team, my first couple of years, I was with Scott again. We both joined the team at the same time. Another guy called Noddy, who we were the 2 spares together. And then now I seem to switch through pairs partners quite a lot. I feel like I'm a bit of a guinea pig. So in most years I have 4 or 5 pairs partners until we finally settle on a combination coming into final trials. So yeah, it used to be nice and simple. Now there's a lot of switching in the team.
Talk us through that switching around. How does it work? Do the coaches just say, right, today you're rowing with so-and-so?
Yeah, I mean, you can sort of get a rough idea. So last year, following the World Championships, Jurgen just made it nice and simple. And he just said, okay, stern pair, you're going to go as a pair. Bow pair, you'll go as a pair. And then he divided up the middle four into their pairs combinations. And then he'll sort of let them go for a couple of weeks and see sort of how much speed they can create. If they're not creating as much speed as he wants them to, he'll make a change. And his main goal is, come final trials, if there is one standout pair, then there's a standout pair. But ideally, he wants to see good racing. He wants to see how athletes cope. It's a really tight racing. So he tries to spread out the athletes to make everyone as close as possible in sort of over a 2K. Which always makes it a bit more fun. And then you have no idea if you're going to be in an A or a B final trials. And, sometimes you can come on the wrong side of the draw. And so it's another good learning experience.
That's fascinating. So as an outsider, obviously we look at the trials results. And I think I had always presumed that the fastest pair was selected to row together. But actually what you're saying is he's trying to make even pairs and really, really tight racing to see how you react under pressure. Yeah,
I think sort of in previous Olympiads, you've always had the standout pairs, sort of Pete Reed and Andy Hodge, and then Mo Sabihi and Alex Gregory. And obviously you got Pinson and Redgrave. But I think, after Rio, especially on the sweep side, we lost almost 90% of the squad. I think there was only a few of us remaining. And so I think it was a good way of bringing more experience into the squad before we actually got onto sort of the meaningful races at the World Cups and the World Championships, and sort of using pretty much any excuse to put us in a race situation where he wants to see us cope with pressure, sort of the mental stress, the physical stress, and also to see which combinations will work leading forwards. It will make selection for the bigger boats even easier. So not so much a lead boat anymore, but occasionally you have one that has a great race on the day, and they could win by open water. But in most racing situations, that's quite unlikely.
That's absolutely fascinating. And in the British system, as I understand it, they pick a boat class in order of their preference. And am I right? The 8 is the top boat at the moment?
It depends. I mean, it was the top boat last season. That was purely because on paper, it was the hardest boat class to qualify for the Olympics, as there were only 5 places. So even if you made the A final, you weren't secure. You still had to come in the top 5. Whereas in some of the smaller boat classes, you could be in a B final and you could still qualify. So I think purely for that reason, and because we were in a B final a couple of years ago, Jurgen just wants to make sure that that boat class was safe, and then all the others should follow suit. But now I have no idea. Jurgen can go back to the drawing board, and now it's all about trying to win medals. Now the boats are qualified.
So how many men's sweep boats did qualify?
2. So we got the 8 and the 4, and then the pair just missed out, unfortunately.
But you weren't in the pair, so that's all right.
No, not this time.
Does athlete preference come into it at all, in terms of, you've obviously said you love racing pairs. When it comes to, selection for Worlds and Olympics, do the coaches even ask you what you'd like to do?
The only people that get to suggest what boat they might want to be in are the people that win the trials. So the pair that wins and the single that wins, they're then approached. They look, well done, you won the trials. What would you like to do for the rest of the season? But then you already know what the coaches are thinking, and everyone just wants to get along at the end of the day. And so when I won trials a few years ago, myself and Alan Sinclair, we knew that the 8 would be the priority boat. So as much as it would have been great to race the pair, straight away we knew that maybe the 8 was the priority boat. So okay, the pair would be great, but we're happy to do what you want us to do and just put us where you need us to try and sort of, push the whole squad up.
That's fascinating. Now, thinking back to when you were the new boy joining the squad for the first time, and obviously in the last couple of years and possibly even this year that there'll be new people coming through. What's it actually like when you first turn up at Caversham for day one of an elite training?
Yeah, it can be quite daunting, and I think the main thing is you're now sort of rubbing shoulders and training with athletes that you've only been able to sort of relate to through the TV screen and watching them race. So that's the main thing you need to get over. And then the other one that's always weird is every now and then we bring out polo tops and t-shirts into the crew room, and the whole squad sign them, and they go away to a charity auction or to a local club. And as the new guy, you're always sitting there waiting for someone to tell you to sign it, because you don't want to sort of overstep and make yourself a member of the squad and sign your name on it prematurely when you're well within your right to, because you've been invited there for a reason and you are a full-blown member of the squad. But for me, and you see it with the new guys coming through now, that you can see they're still going through that same process of, am I in the team? Am I not in the team? Am I allowed to do this? So it's a funny learning experience for sure.
And when you first joined, do they have a kind of induction, or do you literally just turn up and follow everybody else and work it out as you go along?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite lucky when I joined in. Sort of the way my rowing career has evolved, I've just sort of transitioned from one into the next. I went straight from juniors into under 23s, under 23s straight into seniors, because they all sort of fell in line with the Olympic Games. And when I joined the team, a lot of my friends joined it with me. So there's quite a large group of us who were invited at the beginning of sort of 2000 and I guess 12-13 season. But a lot of the older guys were still on holiday, because you get quite a long holiday after the Olympics. So we were already back training at Caversham for maybe a week or two before the other athletes decided whether they're going to retire or carry on. So that was always fun. And when they came back unfit, and I remember doing my first ergo next to Andy Hodge and thinking I was amazing because I was maybe 1 or 2 splits ahead of him. But then I had to remind myself that he hadn't trained in 6 weeks, and I'd already been training for 3 weeks myself.
Yeah, that it's a nice feeling while it lasts.
Yeah, it didn't last very long, but I made the most of it.
Excellent. And suddenly there you are in the training room and in the boats alongside people who were your heroes, and as you say, people who you'd never thought to speak to before. Now you're one of those older, more experienced. You've done a couple of Olympiads. What role are you expected to take? Are you told to do anything with regards to the newcomers?
No, not really. I mean, I think with all things, when you've been there for a while, you know the general setup. You know how things are going to pan out most of the time. You know what the coaches are thinking. You've got a good understanding of the do's and don'ts. Especially I do. I've had a lot of don'ts in my time, so I've learned from those lessons. And for me, it's weird thinking of myself as one of the old boys now, but I definitely am. And it's nice having some athletes from my old university coming through now, and they definitely send me messages like, okay, so what are we expecting on the first week back? Is it going to be quite tough? Are they going to be half days? Do you have a rough idea of what's going on? Or do you know what's going to happen with the seat racing? Do you know what's going to happen here? And, I've been in those positions plenty of times myself, and it is quite nice to sort of be a bit of a leader, I guess, but also be someone that they can talk to and sort of put a bit of trust in. So I think that's a bit of a privilege in a way.
It certainly is, and great for you to show that sort of leadership and give them the reassurance that possibly you didn't get.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Brookes, because that was your university. a phenomenally long-term successful program.
Mhm.
So was Richard Spratley your coach there?
No, I mean, I remember Richard maybe coaching me from when we were like maybe 2 or 3 sessions in the 4 years I was there. But by the time I arrived, Henry had fully taken over the reins of sort of the senior men's squad.
Yeah.
And back when I was there, it was a tiny club compared to what it is now. I think in my first year, I was in the PA, so the student cox fours, and I think we had 1 template. And I think by the time I left, we had 3 women. So it was a really, really small boat club. And now when I go back down, it's huge. You've got 2 boathouses. You have boats upon boats entered in everything, men and women, lightweight, sculling, sweep. It's definitely come a long way. And I think Spratley's definitely been the driving force. He's definitely behind the scenes trying to create funding, sort of spread the word with media. And I think Henry's sort of, like I said, taken on the reins of the coaching aspect and brought on more coaching staff to help facilitate for the increase in students. And I think the 2 of them, they get along really well. They've known each other for a long time. Obviously, I think Richard actually coached Henry when he was a student at Brookes. So they've both been through it together, and they get along really well. And I think that just sort of shows within sort of the Brookes culture now.
Tell me, what is the Brookes system?
I think it's definitely changed since I was there. I think it's a lot more thought-driven now. And I think it still has a reputation for being quite an intense environment. A lot of battle paddling, a lot of high-intensity pieces, trying to cram a lot into one session. But I think that's good, especially for a university. The first reason you go to university is to get a degree and sort of prepare you for the life afterwards. And a lot of universities in the UK expect you to train at stupid o'clock in the morning and then spend all day in the library and in lectures revising and then train again in the evening. But at Brookes, especially on weekdays, you train once a day and you either go at 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock. And yes, the sessions are intense, but that's because you're trying to basically blend 2 sessions into one, so you get the most out of that one session. And I think you got the bit of the heritage behind it. So, the athletes who are joining go in there knowing what it's like and hoping that it's going to be everything they expected and more. And I think sort of that mentality is just fueled by that desire to try and just sample the system. And it's great because I still represent them. I still go back and race for them every year at sort of Brit Champs and Eights Head. I try not to slow them down. And it's a great thing to still be part of. Yeah.
The change in funding must have been significant, because my recollection was that Brookes did really well, but they were never, flush with cash like some other top university, particularly heavy sweep crews. Do you know what's changed? Has the university suddenly decided that rowing is the best advert it can possibly have?
I think that's helped, but I definitely know that the sort of Henry and Richard, and especially the athletes, have put a lot of work and effort into trying to raise funds. I think, they managed to pay for their first MPAC array by doing a 24-hour charity row in the middle of Oxford, and whatever funds they could raise, then I think the university would match. And so then together they managed to raise enough money to buy their first MPAC array. And then, based off that, they've won Henley multiple times since then. I think, that's great advertising for the university, and I think they just want to capitalize on that. So they put a little bit more money in, Brookes do a little bit better. They put a little bit more money in, Brookes do a little bit better. And now it's grown to the size it is. And I don't think it's showing no signs of slowing down whatsoever. So I think, it's great for the boat club. It's great for the university. And, I think everyone is getting a lot of benefit out of it.
So what's Henry's coaching style? Every coach has something that, as an athlete, they are really, really hot on, one thing. What's his thing?
I think Henry, he just wants to see athletes that give it their all. When he was in the team and when he was a student, I know the sort of mindset he had. and he was one of these guys that would love to race and would put everything on the line. And I think he expects that from the athletes himself. So the athletes that don't give it their all are the ones that will really grind him the wrong way. But if you get a handful of athletes or a whole boat club of athletes that are just clawing at each other to try and get one seat ahead, I think that's what he thrives in. And that's what he wants. He wants athletes who are self-driven and will do the program, and they'll do it to their sort of best capacity every single time to try and earn their seat. And, there is a lot of rivalry. And at the end of the day, everyone wants to be in that top boat because everyone knows that top boat can go on to Henley and can win. And ultimately, for a lot of students who probably don't think that they can make the senior squad, for them, that is the pinnacle. And they're going to do everything they can to get in there.
How do you think you build that sort of attitude? I mean, obviously, the newcomers learn it from the existing people in there, which is pretty much what you've told me the Great Britain system is like.
Yeah.
How do you get started in that?
Yes, it's a bit of a baptism of fire, really. You definitely got to get used to it, and it definitely toughens you up. I remember when pretty much my first session there, and it was some stupid long session, which started off with a massive ergo and then a big body weight circuit. And then you grab these golden weight bars off the wall that are about 40 kilos. And then you do a stupid amount of sets and reps. And by the end, sort of every part of your body is shaking. And out of nowhere, this huge guy who was in his 4th year just started screaming at me and was telling me that I'm at Oxford Brookes. This is the best rowing university in the country. And was just like, and then suddenly there was a group of these senior athletes just screaming at me to finish my set. And I'm there as sort of just turned 18, just moved out of my parents' home, living by myself, not used to these people screaming at me. And that was my sort of baptism of fire, really. And then after that, you put the bar down, you go out for a couple of drinks, and, the whole bonding starts.
Later on, were you one of the senior athletes screaming?
Oh, definitely. I was the boat club captain, so I had to.
So
you always got to tell them back in my day, it was always worse.
There's a T-shirt slogan, I think, there.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Now, looking forward to next summer, obviously the international boats are not very likely to be at Henley because it's an Olympic year. So do you think Brookes can win the Grand?
I think they've got every chance of winning it. It's definitely the best time in the Olympiad to give it a go. And, I think everyone saw, I don't know if everyone did, but there's a race during the World Cup in Germany where a certain German 8 came up against a certain Brookes 8, and it got very close. And I wasn't expecting that result. But speaking to people after the race, I don't think the German crew were particularly happy, only winning by about half a length over a student 8. Mm-hmm. So if they can get within that margin, I think they've got every chance of doing it again in Henley. They thrive under that atmosphere. They always do well at Henley. And I think I think it'll be awesome for Brookes to win the Grand, yeah. Back
in 1997, Imperial College won the Grand.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the core of athletes that went on to form the 8 for Sydney in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied it, there were 24 athletes that went through that boat in an Olympiad to pull out 1 gold medal at the end of 4 years. That's but that was where they got started. So it could be looking pretty good for, what's it, Paris?
Paris in 24. Yeah, definitely. And especially seeing how well the British under 23 team did at the World Champs this year. They were incredible. They topped the medal chart, which has never been done by us before. So there's definitely a lot of talent coming up. So if I am still going, I've got to watch my back.
Old man. So let's go on to your new gig. I saw you online as RowElite. Tell us about
it. So RowElite was sort of an idea that popped into my head following the Rio Olympics whilst on holiday, sat next to a pool in Mallorca. And, I came to the realization that for that whole 4-year period, I committed everything to going to Rio to try and win a medal. And, I did get to go, and that was a great privilege. But ultimately, you train as hard as you do and commit your life to the sport to be able to go there to win a medal. And I had to go there as a spare. And as great as it wasn't what I wanted. And so following that, I decided, do I carry on? Do I stop? I'm too stubborn to stop. So I decided to carry on. But I needed something on the side to keep my brain ticking over. And I needed something to keep me focused, and a small break from rowing. Obviously, it's still rowing orientated, but it's my break from the normal day to day, and I get to help other people. I think RowElite in its most basic form is it's online coaching. So we do video analysis, we write training programs for everyone and anyone, any experience level, any age, any focus, any event. We just try and use sort of our knowledge and our experience to help as many people as we can.
I'm just going to flip over if I can. Oh, I've done the wrong thing. I was going to flip over and show people what the website looks like. So hopefully you can see this too.
Oh yeah.
That's me. There you are.
That's RowElite. And my most recent addition is the online crew, as you're seeing there, the online rowing team. It's completely free. You can sign up. It's on Concept 2. We currently have a team of 51 athletes. And once you're on there, you can join our private Facebook group. And everyone on there gets along really well. We all share ergo scores. We all encourage and support one another. If anyone has any questions or worries, it's not always me responding, but it will be another member of the team or the crew that will respond. And it's like our own little rowing club, but online and virtual. And we like to meet up. And for example, last night we all went out into London for a massive pizza. There was 7 or 8 of us that managed to get together. And a few weeks ago we all went out bowling. So it's a nice group of people. It's a nice social thing to get into, and it's if you're rowing on the water or on the ergo, it's great for sort of keeping you ticking over. A lot of people sort of fall out of love with the sport if they're not getting what they want from it, but a lot of people have said how much they enjoy joining this small community and just seeing how everyone else is getting on. It's spurring them to want to pick up an oar again and get back out on the water.
So in addition to providing training programs, do you go as a team to compete together, or is it just about training?
Yeah, hopefully. So we're actually, in the moment, we're trying to design some rowing lycras, because a lot of the team, now that they feel sort of confident enough on the rowing machine, they all want to go to the British indoors, sort of the Irish indoors, the Welsh indoors, and they want to represent the RowElite team. So that's next on the checklist. And I would love to do a team relay, but chances are I'll be at the British indoors myself doing either a 2K or a team relay, so I won't be able to join in. But I know, especially today, because the entry's open today, that there's a lot of chat on the Facebook group already of people signing up and trying to create teams. So there'll definitely be a lot of people racing at the indoor events this year, which would be great.
So if anyone would like to join you, what do they need to do?
You can either go to our Instagram account on RowElite and you just click the link in our bio and then just click join the crew, and that'll take you to the Concept 2 page. You just fill in your details, and once you're in there, I'll find you and I'll invite you to our Facebook group, or you can do it through the homepage on our website. It's super simple. It's completely free. And Concept 2 open up lots of different challenges. At the moment, we've got the full challenge, where as a team, we're all trying to cover as many meters as possible over sort of this month. And I think at the moment we're knocking on the door of just over 2 million meters. So not too bad. And everyone's encouraging each other to do 1 extra meter, 1 extra K. So everyone's getting very competitive.
It sounds like the Brookes system is carrying on with you as the chair.
Yeah. It's hard to shake.
It's great. And so anyone can come and join in and become part of that team. And then if they want a training program, that's extra.
Yeah. So you can either download training programs. There's 4 and 6 week plans that you can just download straight off the website. Or if you wanted more of a sort of a personal touch, then there's 2 other options where at the moment I'm I'm the main coach. So if anyone signs up to those, then we use an online platform. I'll write all your training programs completely sort of tailored to you, with target splits and stroke rates, and there's a good messaging system in there, so we can be in communication pretty much 24 hours a day. I don't stop working until I put the phone down to go to bed. So it's really simple, and a lot of people like that, because once you've finished your workout, you take a photo of the monitor and you just upload that to the current session, and then I can see how it went for you, ask you how it went, give you feedback. You can upload videos, so there'll be technical analysis, and people seem to really enjoy it. It's just a really simple program, platform for people to use, and there's just a lot of back and forth.
Talk a little bit about technique analysis on the row machine. What's your preference in terms of how people row the machine, bearing in mind you've got a goal of meters or a split?
I'm not a massive fan of the textbook style of rowing, where they use stick men with perfectly straight backs and their hips completely rocked over and everything perfectly in position. I think everyone is made differently. Everyone has different strengths, different weaknesses, because the older you get, the more niggles you have. So I think as long as you're loose and you're relaxed and you're doing the basics correctly, apart from that, there'll be minor adjustments where maybe you can be a little bit more efficient. Maybe you're grabbing at your arms and you can just loosen off the arms a little more. Maybe there's a bit of bum shove. Maybe it's like as simple as you've got your feet too high, and so you can't quite compress enough. So it's just a simple change of bringing that down. Or we can give you some suspension drills and some other, like a big one that many people don't do enough of, in my opinion, is feet out rowing. Quite a lot of simple fixes can be made just by taking your feet out of the straps, and that will make you really think about the leg drive, keeping the core engaged, how you're finishing the stroke. And yeah, there's a lot of simple fixes, but I don't think anyone should be completely bolt upright, and not many people can completely rock forwards in their hips. Not everyone can hit the same compression. So as long as you're separating over the knees before you break the knees, and you're coming in a nice smooth manner, you're not jolty on the front, I think you're already in the right direction. And then make little tweaks to the individual to help them.
I totally support what you're saying, particularly about the foot stretcher height. I either see people massively over compress. So there are some, I'm coaching some new to the sport women at the moment, and the very slender ones can totally compress up, and then their knees go over the vertical. And then there's the less flexible ones, which is the majority, who simply can't understand that dropping their feet gives them a better result. And it's really interesting to repeat, do you remember where we put your feet last time? Oh, yeah. So why didn't you do it again? What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, I was at a gym myself a couple of days ago, teaching a group of personal trainers how to get the most out of the row machine so they can offer the best service to their clients. And every time I would switch them over, I would accidentally hit the drag factor down on the fan, maybe change one of the foot placements, and sit them down and just wait and see how long it took them to realize what had actually happened, and put them through that same process, and always say, what's changed here? And it's like a light bulb moment. Oh, hang on, my feet have changed. I've got to move that back, make sure it's in the right position. Oh, the drag's changed. I need to go back through the settings and figure out how to do that. And the one thing people will struggle with the most is just the repetitive movement. They look at it and they think it's really simple, but as soon as they're then trying to do it, it's just, they can't quite get it. So then I think they understand how tough it actually is. And I guess almost gain a bit more respect for the people who make it look so easy, especially personal trainers. Do
you use mirrors when you're teaching them?
So most of them don't, but it's definitely something that I like using myself. At Caversham, we basically have one wall that's just completely covered in mirrors. And so if one of the coaches is trying to help us, even now, I still grab the catch with my arms every now and then, and I throw my body off the catch if I start getting tired. So if a coach sees that, then you just put the ergo at a slight angle from the mirror, then you can see a whole side profile, and they tell you, look, you're doing this, turn the ergo, and you can actually see yourself from the side, and you can see, oh yeah, I am actually doing that. Even though I thought I was looking amazing, I'm actually looking terrible.
It's funny how that never changes. I got videoed the other day. I went, oh God, I'm still doing that. And it's something that I've been doing since probably the first year I started rowing. And
It just sticks with you. It's a hard habit to break.
Muscle memory, and when you get tired, you revert back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a classic. On the other hand, it's quite nice, I find, for when you're working alongside someone to say, it's a challenge. I'm doing the same thing that you're doing. You're not alone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not afraid to have someone come along and help me tweak how I'm rowing, because ultimately I want to go as fast as I can from A to B. So whether it's on the water in a boat or on land on the ergo or even in the weights room doing power cleans, I'm always trying to do it a little bit better than I was the day before. And it doesn't happen overnight, and it does take years and years. And I know I've been working on the same focus on the ergo for the last almost 2 years now, and I feel like I'm slowly starting to get the hang of it.
Do you keep a training diary yourself?
No. Jurgen emails us our training programs, so I can always just look back through those. And I'm quite good at remembering ergo scores and how things went. I don't like to look back too much, but I think they are actually quite handy, because I definitely, when I first joined the team, I tried doing a food and training diary, and I probably lasted 2 weeks before I lost interest. But it's funny when I look back through that and seeing the scores I was doing when I first joined, and sort of what I was eating, how much I was drinking. It is interesting. But no, I don't currently do anything like that.
So you remember your weights from one week to another, or surely you have to write down what you're lifting? Or
Yeah, well, we're lucky because we don't lift weights at our home base at Caversham. We go to another gym in Bisham in Marlow, and there we have a team of S&C coaches who record all our data, and we just make a note on a piece of paper and they record it all. And as we progress through the year, they then start giving us target weights. But you do it so often, where your lowest limit is and what your max is. And it's always, as the season progresses, you're either fatigued or you're fresh. And so you can make those little tweaks once you've been doing it for so many years.
Yeah, wonderful gym, isn't it, Bisham?
Yeah, it's really good. We're very lucky.
I used to be at Marlow Rowing Club, and we'd drive down to get to the club past that road. And I remember the English football team were training there prior to something big. And they were just running down the road, obviously going for a run. And it was the first time that I realized how physically large soccer players are, because you see them on the television and it's very hard to judge their relative heights. And he's like, oh, these are really big guys. Like I'd put an 8 together out of them. So you get looked after extremely well. You have a lot of support people who are there to guide, to remember your scores. And who else is in there in the mix? Because we've talked about rowing coaches, you talked about strength and conditioning coaches. What else is there at Caversham?
We have a big science department as well. So we have some people that put we call telemetry, which are these sensors that you put all over the boat, and it's a bit like on an ergo screen. You can see your power curve, and you can see how much watts you're putting down. You can see how efficiently you're rowing, and it's their job to make sure that's set up on all the boats when we need it, set it up correctly, and then they download sort of the information from the sessions, and they turn it into graphs and email it or print it out and hand it to the coaches, and then the coaches can look through it. And then we also have another team that records all our ergo data and sort of how when we go on training camps, our morning monitoring. And their main job, as well as collecting data, is after pretty much every ergo, they'll prick our ear and they'll take a small vial of blood, and they'll put that in a machine, and that will measure our blood lactate level. And then that will give them a good idea of how hard we're working in terms of what number it is. So we always try and look for under 2 minimals. And that's when you're sort of at a steady state jogging pace. Quite often I'm above that, and I still struggle to find out what it is, because I like to push myself and I go off feel quite a lot of the time. And then we have the physios and the team doctors. So our team doctor is still Anne Redgrave, Steve's wife. She's still very much a big part of the team, and she's there most of the week. We have physios and soft tissue masseuses, but we have full-time 3 to 4 physios at Caversham all the time, and you can see them anytime throughout the training sessions, which is always handy because there's always someone that will have a niggle, and it's always great having a physio look at you within 5 minutes of feeling it. And then we've also got boatmen who look after all the boats and the boathouse and the running of the building itself. And then we've got a groundsman who looks after the lake and the wildlife. Wow. So lots of people.
Now the lake is 2K long and it's 4 lanes wide, is that right?
It's technically sort of 7 or 8, but we do 6-lane racing with a dead lane and warm up.
And when you're doing long distance pieces, you're presumably turning around very, very frequently. How do you keep the continuity for an hour session?
You just try and turn as fast as possible, but it's not like a river where you can keep a constant heart rate. You'll do 2K, you'll get the heart rate up and running, and then you'll stop. So you need to try and spin as quickly as you can and get going. And especially in the 8, Jurgen always times how quick we can spin the boat. And he always makes it into competition. Try and spin it in less than 40 seconds. Come on, get going, guys. You need to keep the heart rate ticking over. So I guess the worst thing is just going round and round and round. But you do the best you can with what you got, and it's it's perfect for what it is.
So no drinking on the turnaround. You're like, just stop, turn, go. Yeah,
pretty much. You'll probably pick one point in the session where you're going to have a drink. And it's like, okay, we'll maybe try and get 12K done, and then we'll stop and have a quick drink, and then we'll finish off the rest of the session. But you won't stop multiple times for long talks. Normally we have radios in the boat, and the coach will just radio us as we're rowing along. So we can always hear them, and we don't need to stop and have a chat. We can just turn and carry on and still get coaching.
So the radio comes through the Cox box system?
In an 8, yeah. If you're on a smaller boat, in a pair or 4, we normally just bungee it to the underside of a rigger. And then if the whole crew can't hear it, then at least the bowman can, and he'll just repeat what the coach has said to the rest of the crew.
Now, you've mentioned training to watts, and you've also mentioned heart rate. Tell us a little bit about how you use those in your own training.
I used to go off heart rate, but then I always get, again, stubborn and competitive. So if I know there's a split that I can hold for a certain length of time, I'll hold it. And if my heart rate starts going out of a steady state zone, then I just keep going on regardless. And then I just watch the heart rate build and build and build. And the same, I've got someone next to me. There's someone next to me and it's close. I'd always have to try and push on in the closing stages to try and pip them by 0.1 of a split. But the watts is mainly what we use in the boats on telemetry, but on the ergos, it's always split. So yeah, I should be a good boy and listen to heart rate and pace myself, but I guess it's bred into me.
Now, you told me earlier that you're currently not injured, but potentially off training. What's wrong with you at the moment?
I just picked up a bit of a cold. It's a third day back, and as you said, it's like kids going back to school. They're easy to pick up. And it's a bit of a shock to the system, having, we've had 3 weeks completely off, and then the week before that is obviously the World Championships, where you're not training to the level you're used to. So technically, it's about 4 weeks of no real training, and so there's always a chance that you could pick up a niggle or an illness in your first couple of days back, especially as the mileage starts increasing, and especially in Britain when you got strong wind and rain to go up against on the water. It's quite easy, and it's something that you need to take seriously. It could just be like your regular cold where it's nothing too crazy, but when you're training in close proximity with the entire team all the time, you have to weigh up how serious is it and whether there's a good chance that you could pass that on to other athletes. If you pass it on to another athlete and he goes down or he passes it on, you don't want to take out half the squad with an illness that you could have controlled yourself by just having a day of rest and then coming back once you're better.
So your day of rest, what are you going to be doing? Sitting on a turbo trainer or erging at home?
Potentially. I mean, you message the coaches, let them know what's going on. Usually we go off heart rate. So if your heart rate is sort of 10 beats higher at resting in the morning, then that's normally a good indication that something's not quite right. But you also go off general feel. And if you're really tired and out, like really bunged up and sore, then it's just best to just take the day off completely. Your body needs to recover, and recovery is just as important as the training itself. So rather than you running your body into the ground, as tough as it may be, you have to force yourself sometimes to take a day off and that's going to help you in the long run more so than trying to push on through an illness. You'll just hurt yourself more, put yourself under more fatigue, and you could start overtraining, or your body could just not want to play ball anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's the daily monitoring you mentioned earlier?
So we don't do it every single day. We normally do it on training camps and sometimes at sort of international races. It's just a way for the support staff and the coaches to just see how the athletes are adapting to the training. You basically take a prick of the ear again, take another bit of blood, and that will tell you sort of what your urea level is. So it just tells you how stressed the body is, and the higher the number, the more stressed the body is. It's normal for that to go up and up and up throughout, but there will be a point when it levels out. If it doesn't level out and it keeps increasing, then maybe the coach will have to change the program just for that individual, just so they can last the camp and keep progressing. And then outside of that, you just sort of take your heart rate so you can see sort of similarities in it, and you can compare it to previous years, your fatigue levels, and also they measure your urine. So you take a little bottle of urine in the morning and they test your hydration levels to make sure that you are doing the things that people don't normally think about, that you've still got to keep on top of that. And the hydration obviously plays a huge part, especially when you're still training early in the morning.
It does. And your fatigue level, that's just your own perception. Is it like points out of 10 or something?
Yeah, so it's out of 100. And you just say whereabouts you are. Some people, if they're really tired, they'll go sort of 20 or 30. And it's that person will always go through those ranges. But for me, if I'm feeling really under the weather, then I would normally say 60 or 70. And that's my range. If I'm feeling great, it'll be 100. More often than not, I'll be about 70 mid-camp, where everything hurts. But yeah, it's a good way for that individual to sort of express how they're feeling. And again, if you tell them I'm feeling really tired and your urea level is high and your heart rate is always high, then you can go back through previous years and see, okay, this also happened at this point at the same camp 2 years ago. What did we do and how did we get through it? So it is quite handy to keep.
I like the idea of the individualized training programs. Obviously, it makes a lot more work for your coaches, but I guess it's pretty beneficial because everybody's body is somewhat different.
Yeah, I mean, everyone follows much the same program. And I think it's when you start falling over or you are struggling, then, adjustments can be made. If you start getting a sore back, then they'll take you off the ergo and put you on the bike. If you're struggling on the ergo, then they might give you the afternoon off. But apart from that, everyone gets the same training program. Everyone does exactly the same training. But then there are the odd occurrences, mainly in the weights room, where the S&C coaches will tailor the weights and the conditioning for that person to target their weaknesses. And then in general, day to day, it will be more to facilitate sort of coming back from illnesses, rehab, rehabilitation, and things like that. Brilliant.
Now, Matt, final things. Have you got a rowing tale to tell us?
None as crazy as what you were telling me earlier on. I think the main one that I find still quite funny is just how I made it to my first World Championships as a junior. Obviously, coming into rowing with no rowing background, not really knowing what I was doing, I actually went from not even making the top 50 at my first trial to that same year going to the Junior Worlds. And, I have the coaching staff to thank for that, because they believed in me. They saw my potential. And even though I wasn't doing enough to technically qualify for the next stage, the next trial, they would always take me along with the athletes just so I was there and the selectors could see me and get to know me. And this basically went on all year long of me just losing every single trial until they got me a spot to seat race. Well, not seat race. It was a race off to get into the final set of trials in Nottingham. And I actually managed to win that race off, get into the seat racing. And then so I started from the very bottom and seat raced my way up into the World Championship squad. Still having no idea what I was doing. I was just told to try and make my boat cross the line first. So I went out and tried to do that as much as I could. And sort of took that same thought process with me all the rest of the way. Just try and make sure my boat crosses the line first. And then everything should hopefully go your way.
So leading on from that, what happened to leaving you as the spare man in Rio?
What was it like?
How did you end up a spare and not in the crew?
Oh, okay. Yes, especially Olympic year is obviously a very important year. So the testing can be a lot more intense. And for me personally, my pairs partner Noddy, we were tested pretty much non-stop all the way through the year, all the way through the World Cup series. We actually won the first World Cup. We got a bronze with a photo finish at the second World Cup. And then our selection actually came down to the very last race before the Olympics at the third World Cup in Poznan. And it just happened to be against another British pair. And the decision was whoever wins that race will get the seat in that boat for the Olympics. And we didn't have the best of starts. The other pair definitely did. And I think they opened out to a massive open water advantage over us through the middle. And as we found our rhythm and as we found our flow, we then started our charge back and actually came down to pretty much a bow ball. And I think we actually lost by 0.2 of a second. And they got the seat. They went to the Olympics. And, we still got to go to the Olympics, but we had to go as spares. And we won the spares race and then spent the rest of the week watching and supporting the rest of the team.
That's emotionally and mentally very, very tough.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest struggle, just trying to deal with the mental pressure and, not knowing if you're going to be selected or when your trial would come up. And so it was basically a summer of stress and worry. And it came down to that last race. It didn't go our way. And that was a very tough period. But, we knew the guys who had earned the place over us very well. I've actually gone on to race final trials of both of them as they both were on stroke side afterwards. Won trials of one of them and came third with the other. And, they deserved it just as much as we did. And, on the day they were the better crew and we're around each other all the time. We all know how much we commit to the sport and how hard each other trains. So at the end of the day, I don't think anyone in the squad deserves it over the other. And, if they get selected, then we try and support each other as best we can.
That's amazing as an attitude thing. It's sort of we're together, but we're also opposed.
Yeah, and we actually had in seat racing to see who got to go in the World Championship cruise last year around April time. I was sat in the gym with Ollie Griffiths, who was in the 6th seat behind me in the 8. We came in after the one of seat races. We're warming down on the ergo. We sort of looked at each other and thought, this is so surreal. What other job or environment would you be in where every year you compete to see who loses their job and who gets to keep it, and everyone is completely fine with the outcome? You really make your best friends to see who gets to keep their job, and everyone accepts that, and it's crazy.
It really is. Thinking back to that final World Cup race, obviously 2 extremely different race plans from you and the other crew, and you know each other really well. Could you have guessed that was going to be their plan, to go out super hard in the first half of the race? Would you have done anything differently if you had have guessed that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that sort of style suited them. I mean, I'm much more of a sprinter, so I sort of come into my element in the later stages of the race as I start to really build up and sort of turn the diesel engine on, I guess, and start really winding up for the line. I think maybe the result could have been switched had we have done a better job in the first half. But I think they put together the best race they could, and they raced out of their skins, and they weren't in the best shape when they crossed the line, so they gave it their all. And I think we didn't. We were a little bit under the weather, but that's what it comes down to. You can guess how certain people are going to race, and I think in those situations you just got to put it all on the line and just get out as hard as you can and hold on. And on the day, they did a much better job of that than we did.
That's very respectful of you, but equally it shows how fine the margins are between hero and zero. Yeah,
and it wasn't my smallest margin either. The race before that was 1,000th of a second, and at least this one was 0.2.
That's a smaller margin as you can get.
Yeah.
No, it's been brilliant. Thank you very much for coming with us on this incredible journey and insight into your life as a professional athlete in the Caversham training environment. Best wishes for RowElite. Remember, everybody, if you'd like to find out more, go to rowelite.com, find them on Instagram, and you can join their Concept 2 crew and train with them. And for the regular listeners, go check out our monthly sponsors. It helps us keep broadcasting and cover our costs. So that's fastermastersrowing.com and the rowing chat /sponsors page for the Randall foils. Till next time, goodbye.
Cheers.